technological progress not only created trench warfare, it also opened up a new battlefield. The air. Aeroplanes were crucial for reconnaissance of enemy positions, and the British Royal Flying Corps fought to gain air supremacy from the German air service. Cecil Lewis joined the Royal Flying Corps in 1915. He was barely 17 years old, and he lied about his age. He had his baptism of fire at the Battle of the Somme in the summer of 1916. The British prepared for the battle with a massive bombardment of the German lines, which lasted a whole week. Reconnaissance planes had to report on the effect of the bombardment.
When they began to build up towards the main bombardment, we used to go out and photograph, and these jobs were among the most terrifying that I ever did in the whole war. When you had to go right over the lines, you see, you were midway between our guns firing and where the shells were falling. They had orders, we were told, you know, the artillery, not to fire when an aeroplane was in their sights. They cut it pretty fine, you know, because really one used to fly along the front on those patrols, and that lasted for 2 or 3 days, and the aeroplane was flung up, you know, with a shell which had just gone underneath and missed you by 2 or 3 feet, you think, or flung down when it had gone over the top. And this was continuous, so the machine was continually bucketing and jumping as it was in a gale. But in fact, it was shells. You didn't see those; they were going much too fast. But this was really terrifying. Feeling they're firing at us. It's us they want to get, you know. So many of the boys and my best observer and many of my friends were just hit about this barrage, you know, and destroyed by a direct hit from a passing shell.
Young Lewis was awarded the Military Cross for his actions over the Somme. He was moved to 56th Squadron and joined the ranks of the elite fighter pilots. It was their job to shoot down enemy planes.
Our eyes were continually focusing, looking, craning our heads around, looking for those black specks which would mean enemy aircraft at a great distance away. Clinging close together, about 20, 30 yards between each machine, swaying, looking at our neighbors, keeping our throttles, setting ourselves just right so that we were all in position, as it were. And then sooner or later, we would find the enemy. The whole squadron would enter the fight in good formation, but within half a minute the whole formation had gone to hell. There was nothing left except just chaps wheeling, zooming, diving on each other's tails, perhaps all 4 in a row even, you know. There were a German going down, and one of our chaps on his tail, another German on his tail, another Hun behind that. Extraordinary glimpses one got, or people approaching head-on, firing at each other as they came, and then just at the last moment turning and slipping away. The fight would come down from 15,000 feet right down to almost ground level. You had to fight as if there was nothing but you and your guns. You had nobody at your side, nobody who was cheering with you, nobody who would look after you if you were hit. You were alone. When you fought alone and died alone. But those who died weren't there when we came there.
After the war, Cecil Lewis became one of the 4 founders of the BBC, and he wrote a memoir of his wartime experiences, Sagittarius Rising, a bestseller that was turned into a movie.
We used to take off on these big squadron offensive patrols, usually in the afternoon, kitted up, of course, in our long sheepskin thigh boots and leather coats and little sort of motorcycle helmets and goggles. And by the time you got all that in a cockpit, there wasn't much room. We were wedged into our cockpits. Ran our engines up for 2 or 3 minutes, water-cooled engines, time to get them warm, and then took off severally, and at about 500 feet would begin to get in formation and head slowly out towards the lines. We were about 20 miles or so behind the line, so we had time to climb up on our way over. Our business was offensive. That's to say, we used to climb up to get height this side of the lines, and then when we got our height, go over and look for trouble. And we usually got up to about 15 or 16,000 feet before we actually crossed the lines into enemy territory. This was a good height and, of course, very cold. Our eyes were, of course, continually focusing, looking, craning our heads round, moving all the time, looking for those black specks which would mean enemy aircraft at a great distance away. And we'd be perhaps between clouds, you know, not to be able to see the ground, or only parts of the ground which would sort of slide into view like a magic lantern screen of something far, far beneath. Clinging close together, about 20, 30 yards between each machine, swaying, looking at our neighbors, keeping our throttles, setting ourselves just right so that we were all in position, as it were. And then sooner or later, we would find the enemy, or spot the enemy. If it was lucky, it would be below us. But in those days, we were always under the enemy. That is to say, our machines, good as they were in the spring of 17, were not really still up to the Huns, who usually had 1,000 to 2,000 feet ceiling clear above us. So even at 16,000 feet, we were still liable to be jumped from on top. But that, of course, didn't have to worry us. And we were usually outnumbered 2 or 3 to 1. We were very rarely fighting on equal terms. In those sort of engagements, when we spotted the enemy formations below us, we engaged, irrespective if there was anybody above or not, and just chanced it. And usually the top flight of enemy aircraft who were above us would come down and jump us as we went down. You know, it's not really possible to describe the action of a fight like that, because having no communication with each other, we simply had to go in and take our man and chance our arm, and keep our eyes in the back of our heads to see if anybody was trying to get us as we went down. But there was always the point where you had to go down anyway, whether there was anybody on your tail or not. And so the fight began at these altitudes and engaged and disengaged with bursts, perhaps 30 or 40 rounds. Tracer ammunition, you understand, 3-in-1 tracer, so that there was always some idea of where you were fighting, because your sights really were no good in these quick dogfights. There wasn't time to focus anything. It was just really snap shooting. And so the whole squadron would enter the fight like that in good formation, but within half a minute the whole formation had gone to hell. There was nothing left except just chaps wheeling and zooming and diving and on each other's tails, perhaps all 4 in a row even, you know. A German going down, one of our chaps on his tail, another German on his tail, another Hun behind that. I mean, extraordinary glimpses one got, or people approaching head-on, firing at each other as they came, and then just at the last moment turning and slipping away. The fight lasting perhaps for altogether 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour, would come down from 15,000 feet right down to almost the ground level. By that time, probably ammunition exhausted, guns jammed or something like that, and then there'd be nothing left but to come back home again.